Trishul achieved FIRE, then started a business that now supports his lifestyle. We know he's on track to have too much money.
Welcome to the Mind Money Spectrum podcast, where your hosts, Aaron Agti and Trishul Patel, go beyond traditional finance questions to help you explore how to use your money to achieve the freedom you want in life.
Hi, my name is Aaron Agti. I'm a financial advisor in the Bay Area. I'm here with Trishul Patel, a wealth manager on the East Coast.
Hey, Aaron, great to be here today. And thanks everybody for listening and watching. And that intro was a bit cringy.
I intentionally try to make Trishul uncomfortable. So I feel we're going to get a better conversation today because you're just a little uncomfortable.
Mission accomplished.
Okay.
Here we go.
So for the last couple episodes, if you've been paying attention, we were talking about Trishul's origin story. He had realized from an early age that if he kind of kept saving, letting his money compound and grow and kept his expenses low, he could achieve financial independence. And he did that. He achieved FIRE. Then he wanted to start a lifestyle business because he's also researched a lot of the things that make kind of life worth living, like things that give purpose, things that kind of allow you to enjoy your day-to-day, week-to-week. And also he wanted to see like, oh, he doesn't have to take as much money from his portfolio to support his lifestyle. It just helps that portfolio grow a little bit more. And now he has built a lifestyle practice that, along with his wife's income, I believe, actually does support their lifestyle. So they no longer need to take money from the portfolio to support their lifestyle. And as financial advisors, we know, okay, that nest egg is going to keep growing. It's invested, it's long-term. On the scale of 10 years, it's probably going to double. So we can already envision this path because we've seen it play out with other clients. We know the research. Trisha's going to enjoy his lifestyle practice, enjoy life. He's going to go on vacations. He's going to raise his daughter. He's going to go snowboarding, camping. And 10 years from now, he's going to have twice as much money that he still doesn't need. So today I want to kind of talk about this idea of good problems to have. Like this is a realistic scenario where many clients end up with kind of making a lot of good decisions, and they eventually end up with more money than they need. The other common one, and I don't know if we'll get into the math, maybe next time, but we'll get into the math of if you're financially independent and you start with a 4% withdrawal rate, because this is the amount that, regardless of what markets do over the next 3 decades, you'll never run out of money. And there's a lot of research about safe withdrawal rates. But if you retire and you start taking 4% out and you don't get the worst case scenario, you merely get average market returns or even slightly above average market returns, then also within a few years, you have more money than you need to support your lifestyle. And if you keep your lifestyle consistent, that extra money will keep compounding, keep growing. So this is another way we've seen it play out with clients who achieve financial independence, that they start off a little on the conservative side because it makes sense, and we might get into that next time. Like, it's a fairly common problem that those who work with an advisor, if we start too conservative due to sequence of return risk, eventually there's more money than they need to support their lifestyle. And today I want to kind of have that conversation, and I'm going to use Trishul as our specific guinea pig of what do you do when you have too much money to support your lifestyle? And I'm not saying Trishul's not a billionaire. Trishul's not super rich, but it's like, we know just how the math works of he could get a withdrawal rate down below 2% and your portfolio is still going to grow. And so I guess we'll just start off. Trishul, in 10 years, when you have twice the amount of money that you have now and your lifestyle is going great, what are you going to think about seeing that number in your investment portfolio?
Oh, geez. You really like seeing me blush here. I don't know. So, to get to this point, it was really a matter of not looking too much. So,
Okay.
and really not thinking about it too hard.
That's you know what? That is another specific example of people like they save in the 401k, saving the 401k, saving the 401k for 2 decades, and they finally have someone look, hey, how much is your 401k? It's like, I don't know, a few $100,000, $2 million. What? Like, this actually happens. They think they have between 500,000 and $1 million, and they've been saving the 401k,
Yeah.
and they accidentally have between 1.7 and 2 million
Yeah.
across kind of 401ks and IRAs. And like, oh, I just got a few $100,000 in this old one, a few $100,000 in this old one, a few $100,000 in this old one. And they actually have someone ask them, and they add it up. It's like they have twice the amount of money than they thought they did.
Yeah.
That happens fairly often for people who, again, like you said, they save really, really well. Again, 401ks make that super easy. They're invested aggressively in a stock portfolio, which is fairly common. Even they just put in the S&P 500, would have worked out.
Yeah.
And then they don't look. And so, like, I agree with that. Like, when they don't look, good things happen. Okay, so
Yeah.
now, 10 years from now, and your financial advisor says, so how much is in your portfolio? And you look at the number. What's that feeling?
I don't know. I think you've you finally silenced me, like, or stopped me, or yeah. I don't know. It's just strange. That first right 100 to get to that first 100,000, you might be looking at it quite a bit because it's such a slow,
Yes.
slow grind. And then that 20th 100,000, right?
Yeah.
From like 1.9 to 2, it could happen in a week. Like,
It's the market went at what, 20% last year in 2024?
yeah, right.
Your
Most of that
million
in a
goes
few
to
weeks.
1.2 really easy.
Yeah, right. So that's the power of compounding. The few examples that I put out there for my clients, I work, just give them some high level insight of this when we just start our education process. The few things that I mentioned, I just show the numbers. Like, if you just max out your IRA, $6,000 for like 30 years, just that's all you do from age 20 to age 60. That's like, with compounding, that's like $500,000 after adjusting for inflation. That's in real terms, right?
I think I've done some math for couples in their 20s. They both work in tech. They max out their 401k, and not even like the mega backdoor Roth, just the 20,000 issue, which also adjusts for inflation. And financial planning softwares do a good job of that.
Yeah.
But if they max out their 401ks from like 25 to 55, it's like $4 to $5 million.
That's the number I was about to put out. Yeah. So if you max out the IRA, that's $500,000. Your spouse does it. That's half, 1 million, plus another 4 million and change from the 401k.
Yeah,
you got $5 million. Like
three to four times the savings in a 401k than you can.
Yeah.
In a Roth IRA.
Right. So roughly what you're putting in per year is like 6,000 per spouse, so 12,000 total. Plus like roughly 20 or so thousand per spouse, so 40. It's like 50,000 per year. That's heavy. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But that's how you get $5 million. And this is all adjusted for inflation, meaning in today's dollars, not $5 million 40 years from now, which is worth a lot less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it's you, husband and wife max out their 401k for 3 decades. And they're on track for $4 to $5 million.
Yeah, and then you think about it. They're age 55. They're 65. Sorry, did you say 55?
No, it's like 25 to 55, I think.
Okay, so they're 55. Now they don't touch that 5 million, let's say, for 10 years. Now it's 10 million.
Yes, right? Exactly. At 65. Yes.
And they wait another 10 years because they don't need to touch it for whatever reason. Now it's 20 million. And now it's like 40 million, like at age 85. Like, what do you do? Like, this is the crazy math of compounding.
Yeah, it's that the other the other way that works out in my time frame, like my math is different, is because I do assume that the 401k contribution limit goes up each year. So when they're 50, they're probably saving 50 per year each. So on that scale.
Mhm.
So it's like 23,500 now, but that amount goes up a little bit each year. So yeah, so when they're 50, as a household, they're saving 100,000 a year, but they're 4 million getting a 10% rate of return goes to 4.4 million. They get 400,000 in growth, and they're only
Yeah.
saving 100K.
Right. Yeah. So that's essentially what we're talking about here, the silliness of compoundness growth, right? When Einstein said this is the most powerful force in the universe, he meant it.
Yeah, that crazy. Like, don't look at it, and you end up rich.
Right. The silly fictitious example that I also throw out there for clients is if you S&P, roughly you could probably track it back 100 years to like the Great Depression, 1920s. If you put $100 in the S&P around that time and you wait 100 years, you got $1 million.
Okay.
Each $100, right?
Yeah.
It turns into $1 million over a human lifetime.
So that's what I think. Actually, that's really. I think that example is difficult for people to internalize. Like, people can't conceptualize. Like, I wasn't around that. Like, I don't know anyone who's alive then.
Yeah.
And everyone, if I do know someone, they were a baby, they didn't have any money to put in the SP fund. It's like, so like getting to regular time frames,
Mm-hmm.
I think is one key that I do try to point out to people.
Yeah. So an investment timeline we kind of I like to think of as being like 40 years. And the reason I think about this is, like, for example, you save in your 20s, you take it out in your 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're saving in your 40s, you're not going to take it all out at age 65. That might be money you take out, later in retirement. So 30 to 40 years of compounding is roughly a 10x.
Okay.
After adjusting for inflation, assuming median market returns. So what that means is the reason you get the 10x is basically a dollar goes to 2, goes to 4, goes to 8, goes to 16, 40 years, 1 to 16, and then take away taxes and slippage and blah, blah, blah. You still get 10x, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, every $1,000 you put away, that's 10,000, right? That can come back, that can be in your portfolio. This is all adjusted for inflation, and it's even more than that, right? Because I said it's 16x, but
I think adjusted for inflation probably does a good job of like keeping you there.
Well, this is even adjusted for inflation because the rule of 7 is adjusted for inflation, 7% every 10 years.
Oh, the rule 72. That's true, because we're probably getting, if you're getting 10%, it's doubling every 7 years. So yeah.
So it's really 16x, but I'm just saying
you're getting a 7. So we're doubling every decade. So you're getting real returns of 7%.
Yeah, that's real returns of 7%. Doubling every 10 years means roughly 16x in 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's adjusted for inflation. And then I say 10x because, all right, pay taxes or whatever, slip ups or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Just conservatively, you get
again,
10 times
we're
back.
trying to not 16x your money, only 10x your money.
Only 10x, right?
Don't want to have too much money.
Yeah, and if you think about it, that 10x. So let's say you put 1,000 in, you're going to get 10,000 in some 4 decades from now. That 10,000, take 4% of that, right? Was that $400?
Yeah.
Essentially, you've created a new annuity that can give you $400 inflation adjusted for the next 35 years. So
I feel like those numbers, they don't help people feel like how much money they have. I don't know if I don't phrase that. That, because even like that 401k, I saved $20,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 10x, I'll have $200,000. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and then you save 20,000 the next year. Okay, I'm at 400,000. I know I need more than that to retire. It's the combination of saving for 20 years.
Yeah.
Where you do that, like, okay, not even inflation adjusting the 401k contribution, just like 20,000 times 20 years
Yeah.
is what, 400,000?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and 10x 400,000 is 4 million.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's super oversimplified, but like it's that combination of both.
Yeah.
Where yes, if you save an extra $100 today, you're
Yeah.
not going to be rich in 40 years.
Yeah.
It's you save 20,000 each year, so you're at not quite 2,000 a month. So you're saving $50 a day, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think it's helpful to visualize it from many different angles, right? Like
That's true.
to
That's true.
say to say in different words what I said, what we just spelled out in math is like, here's a thought experiment. Aaron, option A is here's $1,000 you can spend on an iPhone, right? Option B, you take that same $1,000, give it to me, and in 40 years, I'll give you $400 every single year for the rest of your life.
Still,
okay,
because I think people can't conceptualize the value of $400 per year for the rest of their life. They're like, wait, 400 is less than 1,000.
But it's every single year.
Yes, again,
like you get your $1,000.
You and I know that.
or $300 forever.
Yes. Again,
Infinity, essentially.
I'm not going to live that long.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So then you take that $100, that $300 that you have forever. Just take that $300 and save it for some great grandkids, and that's $3 million for each of them, right? Based on bond.
Okay, but I think we're getting away from the point I wanted to have. Okay, it's the good problems to have idea. Like you actually have more money than you need for your lifestyle, whether we're going to count that now or 10 years from now, because for the foreseeable future, your business will support your lifestyle. Okay. And or your business plus your wife's income. Like you're both very happy with your life, and you have enough money off to the side that could support your lifestyle, but it's not. It's just going to keep growing. And so, are you going to donate it all to charity? Are you going to make it so your kids never have to work? More likely somewhere in the middle. Are you going to increase your lifestyle?
Yeah.
I think there's only like a certain amount of levers you can do. It's usually charity, estate, spend more.
Right.
I guess you could get more conservative with your investments.
Yeah.
But knowing you, like, I don't think that's likely. Like that's just giving up money. Like, why would I do that?
Opportunity cost.
Right? Yeah, like I'm not worried about the stock volatility. I got a 10-year time frame.
A few things come to mind. Okay, so I feel like I should be a little bit more concrete about the financial independence part of my journey, because there's some caveats there. For example, when I decided to become financially independent 6-7 years ago, it was basically the notion that we have just enough passive income coming in to make things work, assuming we keep things very tight and neat and not exorbitant. It was just on the border, right? And this wasn't at 100% confidence. This was at like a 95% confidence, meaning assuming.
I'm gonna keep math easier for like, you got $1 million and your lifestyle expenses are probably 40,000, which should work, but your time frame is longer than normal retiree because you're younger. So let's say you got $1 million and you kept your lifestyle down to 40,000 a year.
Yeah. So let's keep it a little more let's call it 2 million, but let's use a 3% rule since we're talking a longer timeline. So 60 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is your business and your wife's income, is that supporting your lifestyle now?
Yeah. So but a few things happened, right? Over the last 7
Okay.
years. We've had a good run in the market and all of that.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
the doubling pretty much happened, right, already. With how things have progressed, you can look up market numbers over the last 7-8 years or so, and you're already at that level. But at the same time, we realized we were cutting things a little too conservative.
Yes.
With our spending, so that's probably also doubled.
Okay.
But at the same time, the we have a business now, right? That's also providing that amount of income we required, or we now require, right?
And so I'd say it's common. Would not surprise you for those who are younger than say 60 and they go down the kind of starting a business idea, or that they're on that like 3 to 4% withdrawal. Like you're probably not getting the doubling if you're using, especially early on, if you're using the portfolio to support lifestyle. But as your business income grows and kind of like you're not probably saving as much while the business grows because you're actually taking money out of it, but your withdrawals start at 4%, they kind of come down to 3%, down to 2%, down to 1% as your business income grows. So like it's hard for it to double over that same time frame without the outrageous market returns we got over the last 7 years.
Right. Yeah. So when this is when sequence of returns helps.
Yes. And this is a probably better example we see all the time of we start off conservative and then we get average market returns. We don't get a downturn the first year you retire.
Yeah.
And okay,
right.
5 years later, you have 150% of what you started at.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe even like I'll say that you started with 2 million, you now have 3 million. Your expenses have gone from 60 to 80, so 60 to 70, something like that. And so your withdrawal rate of 80,000 from 3 million is now like 2.6%, 2.7. So like you have both supported your lifestyle. Because again, this is no longer just kind of just Trishul. I see this with other clients all the time. Started at 2 million, we're withdrawing 60, good market returns. We now have 3 million even after withdrawals. And a lifestyle has gone from 60 to 80.
Yeah.
And that's now a 2.7% withdrawal rate. The most likely thing that happens is the growth is going to outpace our increased spending. And our 3 million is going to get to 4 million really fast. And it's going to get there a lot faster than our withdrawal rate is going to get to 100K.
Yeah.
Unless we intentionally, so again, think about those levers we have. If we go from a 2.7% withdrawal rate back up to a 4% withdrawal rate, we could increase our spending from 80K to 120K. Again, like a 50% increase on your spending. And so that's a little on the high side of, if I was to have a client say, hey, we did everything right. You were financially independent, you retired. I'm imagining like someone in their early 50s. They're 53 to 56. Okay. We had 2 million. We had a few like house. We decided to kind of paid off the house, like other things going on. And we're like, okay, because we have the longer time frame, we need a little more conservative on withdrawal rates. And now you have again, 6 years go by, you have $3 million. You're now spending 80,000 per year, up from 60. Either your 3 million is going to go to 4 million pretty quickly, or you can increase spending up to 100K. Or like, again, you could be withdrawals from investments that go to charity, could be setting money aside for kids in a different way. So like, if I said, okay, I'd kind of like you to spend an extra $20K per year,
Mhm.
like, how do you feel about that? What would you think if I said I'd kind of like you to spend an extra $20K per year?
Well, okay. So before I address that, and I certainly will in just a second. I just want to clarify a few things about the safe withdrawal numbers, just because I know we've talked about it in the past, but just very, very quickly,
Okay.
where some of those were coming from. The standard safe withdrawal rate of 4% was based upon somebody retiring in their around age 65, estimating out about 30 years, and invested in, I think, like a 60-40 type of portfolio. And that was more like a worst case scenario or a very bad case scenario, meaning all other scenarios would be better. There were, I think, just looking at that research, there were like a handful of very worst case scenarios, but there's
like 3.9% withdrawal rate.
Yeah,
and
the vast majority,
like super rule based, but
but for all intents and purposes, you're far likely to be able to do better than 4%. Is what the data has said. And then, but if you're making this transition in your in your 60s, but in your 40s or 30s, right? Then the numbers are closer to a 3% withdrawal rate.
Yes, as a worst case scenario. Yeah,
as a worst case scenario. However, again, that's worst case, and also 3% doesn't only get you to age 95 like before. It actually is something that's
kind of in perpetuity.
Infinite, right? You can pretty much take out 3% forever.
Yeah.
Based on historical data, not with 100% of confidence, but in the very vast majority of cases, you're kind of okay. Through most bad things that could happen. So again, in my scenario, it was like 95% confident that we could sustain what we wanted to, and things went better. We were in the 95% of scenarios that led to better outcomes.
Yeah. Okay, we want to say this for next time, because I think that having that conversation where I have some clients, if they want to stop working sooner, we can use a higher withdrawal rate, like a 4%, because if they happen to go through those worst case scenarios, they can go back to work.
Yeah, right?
They're still young enough they have choices.
Yeah.
But if I think the average withdrawal rate was actually closer to 6% over the same research data, and the best case scenario, like I think if you tried like 1980, you could withdraw 8% of your portfolio and never run out of money. It's just like the bull market of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, right.
And so like that idea, again, we're not planning on the best case scenario.
Yeah.
But understanding where the average is versus the worst case, it is a important nuanced conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And when we start, we kind of plan on that worst case, or at least having a backup strategy if we go through that worst case. If you're 65, the backup strategy, like, okay, I got to reduce my spending. I don't want to go back to work when I'm 73. Yeah. But if you're 45 and your backup plan is, okay, you have to work 5 years from 50 to 55.
Yeah.
Like that could be an acceptable backup plan. But having like the trade-offs, I like to call it a financial planning risk, because it's not necessarily an investment risk.
Right.
It's that like withdrawal rate. It's a financial planning risk, because you could choose to be more aggressive with your withdrawal rate, as long as you understand, okay, if this risk goes against us, what's our backup plan?
Yeah. Like when we do these simulations, we come up with a confidence interval, and that might say like 95% or something like that. And what I like to tell clients is that doesn't mean 5% they drag you out on the street and shoot you. It means
oh man, you're a lot more than my example is always living in a box on the street.
Sure, which is worse. I don't know.
Whoa. I just say this is not a 5% chance that you're gonna live in a box on the street. It's a 5% chance that you need to not go on vacation one year.
Yeah, it's a 5% chance we'll need to make a change, right? to
Yeah,
do
make an
what
adjustment.
we-
Yeah.
And many
Did
of
you really
those
say that to
adjustments
clients?
will
They're
be.
like, "We're gonna drag you out the street and shoot you."
Oh, I don't know. I was being hyperbolic for the podcast.
Okay.
But my point is, in the vast majority of cases, they likely will not be changes. In fact, there'll be changes in the direction of spending more.
Yes.
In addition, the other caveat that I think it's important to relate is, let's say we follow that 3% example.
Mhm.
Now, what that 3% example is saying is you get to adjust that 3% on that 2 million, that 60 grand for inflation every year indefinitely.
Yeah.
But what you also get to do is, if that 3 million ever goes above 3 million because of good returns, you get to reset your watermark to your new
Yeah.
3%. Because technically, however high it gets, you can take 3%
Your new
indefinitely.
started. Yeah.
So imagine it does double. Now you do have something that is 120 grand, right? That
Yep.
You could pull out indefinitely. And let's say it goes even double on that. That's 240 and 560.
Also,
etc.
this is more anecdotal. I want to get your opinion. The math on that inflation assumption
Mhm.
is very important, and I agree with it. But in practice, we never see clients go from 60,000 to 6,150 the next year. They don't go from 5,000 a month to $5,087. I'm making, I don't know the number for a 3% inflation, but it's like they go 5,000 a month for like 3 years ish, 3 to 4 years, and then like at about year 4 or 5, like things are feeling a little tight. Can I take a little bit of money out? Can I go from like 60,000 to 70,000 or 6,066? And so they end up like they want a 10% increase every 3 to 5 years, which is close to a 3% inflation, but they actually it is actually slightly less. And again, I mean, this is more anecdotal. I've seen this play out over not just with my current client base, but my working career. And I'm curious if you've seen similar observations where clients don't actually increase their withdrawals with inflation at the same level the math would assume.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Here's how it plays out. Here's what I follow and what I do recommend from time to time to clients is, let's say we come up with a number like 4,000 a month, something like that. This is what I do. I send 4,000 to a separate account. All expenses come out of that account, and month after month after month, it's not like down to the penny. Usually there's some buffer, and you can see that watermark of that buffer. Is it rising or falling over time? The good news is, let's say it is rising, then we kind of know that money can be spent. It's already been allocated. It's okay if we splurge on something. All of a sudden there's 10 grand in there. All right, let's just take a big vacation or something like that. And if things do start getting tight over time, then bump it up by 500, right? And add that into the model, and there you go. That's what's required. It doesn't have to be any more regimented than that. And on a month-by-month basis, it just means you're not worried about money, because as long as that balance doesn't go to zero, if it does, no big deal. Give me a call. We'll bump it up to 500. I'll show you, like, adding 500, not going to be a big deal, all right? And we'll do that. And we've already talked about what would happen if that happens, etc. It's not really a surprise, but that's essentially how we handle inflation adjustments.
Yeah. So you threw like, oh, you got an extra 10K. Yeah, to spend more on vacation.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get to.
Right. Okay. Do your question.
How would you actually feel like, okay, my advisor's telling me I should spend an extra 20K.
Yeah.
And I ask you specifically because you've done a pretty good job of designing your ideal lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we've had kind of a conversation about like things and experience and stuff like, but I do find that most people, they have trouble increasing their expenses when things are going well. Like they have these good problems to have. They enjoy their lifestyle already, they and it's also goes along with that, the mentality of saving so well for so long,
Yeah.
that's being told that they should spend more. It creates this like this little problem inside. Like it creates this little feeling
Yeah.
that I try to help clients with. I look for ideas, and that's why I'm kind of asking you, like, can you help me brainstorm of helping people deal with those feelings of having more money than they need for their lifestyle?
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, so what we're operating under the assumption here is that we've done as much as we can on optimizing the investments and putting
Yep.
everything we can into shelters, and the whole strategy is fully running on
Yep.
full cylinders. The college plan is maxed out. All of that, whatever could be done,
Correct.
is done. And yeah, it's like, that scenario of that money is building up on that account. What to do now, right? It's not so. You're right. It's not an easy thing, because to get to this point, it's required a mindset that's different than the mindset that you're advocating for. Certainly, if you've been ingrained to think this way for decades, and all of a sudden it's not all of a sudden, but now things are different. It is a bit different. There's certainly been lifestyle creep, I can say for sure, right? Because I mentioned we were targeting things to be pretty lean and mean, and now we're just kind of back to our pre-retirement lifestyle in terms of our pre-independence lifestyle in terms of expenditure, which okay, so that's one thing. In terms of specifics, I'm going to struggle a little bit, Aaron, here, because it's a lot easier to say to clients rather
Yes, exactly. And because I'm imagining this, because I'm imagining like that turnabout, kind of like, okay, you're gonna ask me the same question, and the first thing that came to mind, like, I guess I could use new ski bindings, like the bindings on my skis are kind of like, but even then, it's I think I'm gonna go skiing one more day this winter. It's not like the new bindings don't help me ski more. My current bindings work just fine. It's the time constraint. Like, I'm coaching kids sports, and my daughters have a musical at school. Like, all the things I want in life are going well.
Yeah.
And so if I had to like come up with something to spend the money on, I was like, it ends up, my first thought, I'm guessing for most people, like, first thought, it's like to buy something special. And you have had many conversations that spending money on things doesn't actually improve your lifestyle.
Yeah. We've also mentioned that the marginal cost of a lot of things aren't that much anymore in the grand scheme of $20,000.
Yes. And so I don't have the time to go on more vacations, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't fly a private, like, so I think that's the thing. It's like, I'm not at the point where I can go from like economy to first class for every flight. I've never flown first class. But like, that's an example that I throw out. I was like, hey, do you want to try this? Like, I try to help clients figure out how to spend more money. And my parents were able to get to a point where they sold their house in Denver, and they bought a new one that had an RV garage. It's like, oh, they have an RV that they like to go camping, and not having to go to the RV parking lot and bring it back to load, like, be able to load it up over a couple days in their garage. That was a noticeable way to improve their lifestyle. And I fully supported moving into this new house with the RV garage, because that made their lifestyle a little bit better, a little bit easier. And so that's what I'm going to come back to you. Is like, can you think of anything that if I told you you have to spend more money, and again, you could just donate to charity, like that possibility is always there.
Yeah.
But I find on that, like, clients are more likely like, oh, well, I want to leave it there just in case, and if I have extra at the end, I'll leave it to charity then.
Yeah.
And like they want to be charitable inclined, but they're okay of like, they don't want to go down to that feeling of being tight.
Mm-hmm.
They'd rather use the excess at the end to support charity, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's not enough to live a really, really rich lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer, you're not trying to follow the lifestyles rich and famous kind of thing, but you have more money to spend. And if you don't, your portfolio is just going to keep growing. Like, just how does that feel?
Transitioning to the state, it actually, I've been thinking about it from a different perspective, which is, I guess not weird for me, but essentially, like every few years, I feel like I need to reinvent myself, right?
Okay.
And I've done this like every few years. I just started a different career in a different field. The difference though this time is I don't feel like I need to run away from financial planning. It's something that I built it the way I want it. I enjoy the actual aspect of working with clients. But I'm in this transition period of, like every few years I might have, okay, what's the next goal? What's the next big thing I want to, do? Whether it be advancing the career or getting a house or a kid, married, right? All of that. But now I'm at the point where, I don't know what the next thing is, and it might be that vision of traveling around the U.S. in an RV type of thing, right? That I did have 4 years ago, but then I'm like, okay, let's start a business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we did that RV stuff, and I remember at the time I was really hungry for some solid R&R, but that's just not the case anymore. I'm a bit saturated with vacations, like in terms of not really looking to take more time. So, I don't feel like I need to solve that problem immediately either. But I feel like it's certainly worth some thought. Because, as you alluded to at the beginning of this call, in 10 years from now, it turns into a bigger problem.
Yeah,
good problem.
Yeah, a bigger good problem to have. But it's like the idea is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
And like you have your Excel spreadsheet where you track your savings portfolio, like, and you see the benefit of compounding. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I'm not in a rush to solve it immediately, but there is this notion of, what should be next. I mentioned this in many other conversations, but just something one of my old CEOs had mentioned in like a speech that he gave about why he turned towards philanthropy. A notion that in a man's life there are 3 phases. He was talking about to himself, but anyway, phase 1, you're a young adult and you're learning and you're figuring out the ropes, how to survive on your own and things like that. Phase 2 is, starting a family and learning how to provide for a family and things like that. And then, phase 3 is the opportunity to give back, right? The opportunity to provide something that can outlast yourself.
I think that there's an important distinction there that you mentioned, like that, because I noticed it for my own lifestyle, and I imagine for you, and for my clients who have kids, their kids are still in school, and that school schedule is their limiting factor, I guess I say. It's like, here's what we have to work around. It's usually
exactly.
not
Yeah.
finances. It's usually kids' school schedule, and then
Mhm.
also all the curricular activities.
Yeah.
And I like to coach my kids' sports team, so it's like I know what my schedule looks like more or less each day for the next 2 months,
Mhm.
kind of thing, each day of the week. And I do see this play like this challenge is closer for those with kids still in the house. And
Mhm.
I have other clients who like either they don't have kids or their kids are older and out of the house. And so the time constraints are kind of removed a little bit different. So I
Yeah.
think that like phase 2 to phase 3 idea, I think the presence of kids or not is a factor there.
Yeah. Spot on. So that's essentially what I was alluding to. So I'm in phase 2 now, and I'm not quite ready to jump to phase
Mhm.
3. Obviously, you can dabble in either direction, go back to 1, go
Yeah.
to 3, whatever. But I feel like it's okay to focus on 2. For the next my daughter's 7 for the next 10 years or
Yeah.
so, right? So okay, that's what might be the majority of my focus.
And I think it's good. Like that's what's gonna happen. It's saying my youngest is 8, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep working, keep coaching, keep like they're going to school. My oldest two will get them off to college, like, and so it's not going to be for like 10 years
Mhm.
where like I'm going to look up. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
kids like that the empty nest idea. But it's just like
Right. Yeah.
kids are out of the house, and like, okay, I'm not ready for that lifestyle.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it happens for advisors to many clients of like, oh, you should spend more money. Like I
Yeah.
told you to spend more money last year. You didn't. Now you got to spend even more.
Right.
And I think it's that trying to, I get the good problems to have idea. I think it goes back to like a lot of our other conversations about it's not buying things. It can be experiences, but it's going to be the friends, family, connections, community.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to make a little more of an effort to see my brother more.
Mhm.
And in the last like 3 years or so, I've gotten up to seeing him about twice a year because he
Mhm.
lives on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, would there be a way for you to connect with friends or family if I told you had to spend an extra 20K per year?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's great having a virtual business because we, we can
Again,
go
time and
anywhere.
location aren't your constraint.
Yeah. And how much is really travel to get to place to place is not exorbitant.
Yeah,
Especially
that's
when
just
you're
like your plane tickets are $200 to $500. Like I would just spend 20,000. It's like
yeah, right.
I could easily think of an extra 1,000.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's even not so bad when you're not constrained by having to travel on like holidays
Yeah,
and
yeah.
weekends, and right, it just the flexibility that it allows um is quite helpful. So uh, I think where I come out is it's a longer term problem, than a shorter term problem, but it's
Oh, it's
certainly
okay.
a longer term good problem to be aware of. Is where I kind of stand in that. Um, a few things in terms of legacy, since you did mention it. A few things come to mind. We've mentioned like the sovereign wealth fund of Norway, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, US, we have a very nice sovereign debt fund of like $35 trillion. So that's negative sovereign wealth fund. But Norway, they decided let's have a positive one and let's actually accumulate assets and create um, a perpetual money making machine, right?
hmm
And interestingly enough, their safe withdrawal rate is 3%. Right? So they take this money, they invest
Yeah.
it for the long term, and they can pull out every single year potentially forever, right? Adjusted for inflation, enough money to provide, services and subsidies for things to support the entire population.
Yeah.
So that's what could happen potentially, with these legacy types of funds. But the second thing that comes to mind, Buffett had said this about legacy wealth. He said, you want to empower your kids to have to be able to do anything, right? But you don't want to give them so much that they won't do anything.
I think I heard it's like you want them to be able to do anything, but not so much they can do nothing.
Okay, yeah. Like I probably butchered it.
So we got the idea.
Yeah, so that's obviously along those lines of thinking is roughly what might make sense, for legacy purposes. I'm sure even with Buffett though, that he still had to hand out like 100 million here and there. What are you gonna do?
So Warren Buffett, I actually know one other person like this. Like, I don't think he cares about his net worth. He likes the business process.
Right. Yeah.
He likes acquiring businesses. He likes running Berkshire Hathaway. Like, that's what he enjoys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the billions are just like a byproduct kind of thing.
Yeah. And he hasn't changed his lifestyle, frankly. He hasn't spent that extra $20K.
Yes.
So like, what's that story? Him and Gates went to McDonald's, to eat. They could literally buy the McDonald's by the amount they earned just eating there, and they use a coupon. Like, So, I don't think you need to per se, right? It's not a requirement. And I say this because, more money, more problems, right?
Okay.
And I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that doing things or getting more things don't necessarily lead to outsized gains, right? Superlative results when it comes to even happiness.
I like my take. I think there's two things there. One, it's not a switch to flip. Like, it's a journey of like internal discovery. It's going to take time to figure out how you could spend more and like what's that stage in your life. And two, it's okay to not spend more.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I do like that. I'm thinking of one client in particular where I've been pushing them to like show them, okay, I've set aside an extra 10K for vacations for the next 10 years. And I've shown them that for 5 years now. And they haven't done, like, they're finally making this trip to Italy that they've been thinking about for a long time. And they're ready to actually go do it. And I'm trying to think, like, should I have seen that as a success of the work that we've been doing together, or did it just take them that long to get to a point where they felt comfortable spending that extra money?
It could be a little bit of both. The few things that come to my mind are, thing one, we've had this conversation before, like the life planning and the Kinder 3 questions, just very high level. The notion is it's a process where we work through with clients trying to uncover what would you really regret, right? Or what would you really miss out on if you happen to die?
How do you want to spend your time?
Yeah.
What is the priority? What do you want to do sooner rather than later? Not
right.
What happen
What
eventually.
really matters, right?
Yeah.
To you. And I think to the extent that spending more ends up aligning with that, whatever the objective happens to be, then okay, right, win, right? And sometimes it is helpful to think more purposefully about this, because you could certainly put your head in the sand and then just let the money grow and then let it pass on. But you're not necessarily setting up the next generation as helpfully as you think you might be. You might be creating more problems even, right, than solving. Yeah. So there should be some responsibility, right, that does come with this. But thinking insightfully about it can be helpful. Thinking proactively about it can be helpful. So the second thing that came to mind is we've also talked about, we've mentioned this book, Die with Zero, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the notion that let's not wait till the trust is the state is the irrevocable trust is no longer irrevocable. Now the revocable trust is no longer irrevocable, meaning let's not wait till you're dead, right, to live out all the things that you think your money can do. Let's try to put it to better use sooner rather than later. Obviously not tomorrow, but yes, we have time to think about this and be thoughtful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's those would be my takeaways. That despite, and I actually mean that like professionally, like I don't say I'm not going to push. I'll probably keep like understanding, but like acknowledging that it takes time for clients to internalize the next phase of their life.
Yeah.
And it is okay to just let the money grow.
It's not okay. Something that needs immediate attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good conversation, Trishul. Thank you very much for pushing back and not actually giving me an answer, but in the right way.
Thanks, Aaron. I enjoyed the conversation. Always insightful to me as well. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you're enjoying these conversations, do spread the word. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of the Mind Money Spectrum podcast. Be sure to visit mindmoneyspectrum.com to access the entire library of episodes. Remember, it's not black and white, but the wide spectrum of gray area where you get to pursue the freedoms you want in life. Opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested in directly. Have a nice day.